because Aaron has been so generous and donated a copy of the Fear the Walking Dead Special Edition Blu-ray to a lucky winner or someone of our Facebook group. So we decided to create a poll. We've got some great participation already, and really the poll is who you think, as the listeners, is going to be killed in the next episode, the final episode of this season of The Walking Dead. It's pretty tight right now. We've got, as of the time of this recording, 17 people voting for Carol, 15 voting for Glenn. Daryl's got 12. That's kind of the three-way kind of leaders right there. Other is 6, Morgan is 3, and Maggie is 2. So really, it's a mixed bag. You can get your vote in right up until the minute of the airing of next week's episode, the season finale of The Walking Dead. So you can wait. You can think about it for a week or so, but get your vote in. That way you have a chance to win the Blu-ray. We'll pick at random from the winning group. So let's say you voted for Carol and she ends up getting it. Not spoiling anything, just saying if you're part of that group, we'll pick one at random, and that way you can win the prize. So pretty cool, and thanks for the participation. But if you haven't voted, get on the Facebook page and vote.
Yeah, it's a good Blu-ray to get, by the way. I mean, as much as I'm somewhat ambivalent on Fear the Walking Dead, I do like a well-stocked Blu-ray, so I mean, it's a nice prize to have.
Yes.
Not too much on the news front. I guess the Walking Dead video game, the Telltale game, the Michonne Episode 2 drops this week, which I still haven't gone back and gotten that one yet. So I may just wait till all 3 parts come out and probably just play it at once. And I guess the other thing is the finale. I want to think that we knew this already, but the next week's finale is going to be 90 minutes.
I think we more or less assumed that would be the case, but I don't think it was actually confirmed until like
it's now confirmed. Yeah,
the kind of thing you expect, I guess, especially this season, which had like multiple 90-minute episodes. You're like, all right, let's keep this train going, I guess.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because FX does that a lot. They had like several episodes that justified that were 90.
Well, FX, FX is so like liberal, and they're like, all right, you can just do whatever you want. Like I think like I never watched Sons of Anarchy, but I'm aware like some episodes were like super long. Yeah, like wow, that's all right. That's what they're doing. Huh? Or like random ones they just go over their time and not even their time, but they just do what they do.
Yeah, I guess they figured, well, we're just repeating this episode right after this one anyway, so what difference does it make? But yeah, Sons of Anarchy. I think the last 2 seasons, I think almost half the episodes were like 90-minute episodes. It was kind of crazy.
Sell more commercials. I mean, if that's a hot show.
Sure. Yeah. Especially final season too, because everybody's tuned in to see how it ends. So yeah, so we'll get a 90-minute episode next week, so that'll be interesting. Lot to do. So we'll just dive right into this week's episode, season 6, episode 15, East, the appropriately named title East. And it had, so it kind of starts out with this montage, and like everything with The Walking Dead, it's like, okay, everybody seems fairly happy, everybody's kind of doing their thing. We see, obviously, based on last week's episode, we knew that Carol was kind of making her way, so we see her sewing her jacket, which I thought was brilliant, because at the time I had no idea what was going on there, but it came to light, obviously, later, which, when we get to the Carol part a little later, I'm curious to have a discussion about that, because I'm very perplexed when it comes to Carol in these last few episodes, and really what's going on with her. But we kind of see how everything's going. We get that scene with Glenn and Maggie where she's in the shower and you can see all the bruises, kind of on her side and on her back and everything.
Yeah, that took a dark turn from like, hey, we're in the shower together too. Oh my god, look at all these things that you're on your back.
Yeah,
listen to all this happy Johnny Cash music. And, oh god.
Yeah. And given where this episode ends, I don't know if that was maybe foreshadowing. I'm assuming.
I don't know.
Wait, the bruises on Maggie.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there could be a result from the things that happened. Like that's fair.
Sure.
I guess.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
It's funny. I was listening. I won't get into details, but I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about an episode from a few weeks back, and they're like, funny. The show doesn't usually use music like that.
They've done it a few times this season. Like
yeah.
And I was like, which show are you watching? Because they do that all the time.
It was so seamless. He didn't even realize it. They just mix it in.
I guess in particular, though, I mean, there's been music in the past on the series, but there does seem to be kind of a chipper attitude to some of the songs being chosen for the various montages we've gotten this season. Like Carol's cookie baking montage or whatnot. Like there's just things like that. Like last week, I had a montage of the every day and whatever. Like, there's a montage this season, by the way.
I think you said it last week. You said they're developing their own artistic style. The show. It's kind of getting into that groove. We are seeing a lot more of these montages. These little, and you know what? It's smooth that way. You put some song on, you get a little bit of glimpse of Glenn and Maggie. Okay, you see what they're doing. You see what Carol's up to. You see what's going on at the guard tower. Like it's nice. It's just kind of a little. Okay, here we are. It kind of sets the tone for the whole episode. It's not a clunky way of doing it. I do like it. But getting back for a second, the cold open.
Oh yeah,
was actually very short.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very. Yeah, so all this you're describing was actually after the credits. Surprisingly, the cold open was just this weird little flash forward with the car with a bullet hole through the windshield and blood dripping on the ground, spikes, and you hear Carol in the background, and it was she blew somebody away. So definitely pretty cool, but creepy cold open there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Well, this feels like a cold open. These opening scenes, so it's odd. I know what you're saying. It feels a lot of place.
That's one where I do feel like that'll play better on when you get it. That'll play better when there's not commercial involved with it. Like I already liked it, but I feel like for people that do kind of watch it at home on iTunes or view it, whatever process they watch this the show through where there aren't commercials, I think it might play better in that regard where you don't have a kind of pause between stuff. You get that jarring like credits and then it like slowly moves into the actual episode. Like, it was still neat. I did appreciate the especially the contrast to some of the past few weeks cold opens. This was a very incredibly short one that had some stark images and jumped into some wild action that we'll obviously be seeing more of later on in the episode.
Yeah, and it was vague enough where I like when stuff like that happens because it starts my brain going because I'm like, okay, who is that? Which characters? What was going on? Is that at the very end of the episode? Are we gonna loop back? And then it turns out it was the Carol bits. But I like that because it just kind of gets my brain like in the gear of like, okay, we're started, and then we get the slower post credits open. But
yeah, it's time shifting. It really is. They're playing with time, and they're doing it very well this season. Really, I mean, it's a little jump forward in the beginning in the cold open. Then we actually jump backwards a bit from where we ended last week's episode because we remember Tobin was reading the Dear Tobin note, Dear John note at the end of last episode, and now we're seeing Carol before she even wrote the note, and she's gathering her supplies and sewing her gun arm together, and so it's a nice, but they're doing it in a seamless way where it's not taking you out of the story.
I would agree that it's nice to see more of the build up to it. At the same time, it didn't really add anything to me as far as getting a sense for why it is Carol's making this. Like, I get Carol's decision, but in terms of like, it didn't feel like it retroactively made last week's episode better, which I also complained about the ending of Carol leaving by showing more of it. That didn't do too much more beyond just make me think, okay, when are we going to get to the present where I'm already aware of the things that happened.
It didn't take a lot of time to it though either. It
didn't drag it down, and I mean, I was appreciative of seeing the other characters for sure, but it's just like, all right, I know where this is going. I don't care about Tobin because all I know is his name is Tobin. So like, what am I watching?
He builds things.
He builds. Yeah, he's Wreck-It Tobin. Or I guess Carol. He's Tobin the builder.
So the builder, right? That's what he is, Mr. Tobin. And do you guys remember that awkward shift change to the guard post where Rosita spots Sasha giving Abraham a cigar while he changed the looks? Yeah, that was part of the montage.
Awkward.
I was thinking, I wrote that. I wrote awkward right there. I was like, okay.
When even Sasha was like, okay, maybe I should have pulled that back a little bit. Like it's I think she realizes, this is still raw. These people are, it's funny. I was watching The Talking Dead, and she was saying like they're, Rosita's still like family, and so to kind of have this going on with people that respect, just respect and everything, it just makes it kind of hard.
Well, it's almost should have like Kill Bill style, like just like highlighting how obvious this is. Where you're, because it's like
drops in black and white, right?
It's not like Sasha's not aware, or that she can't see Rosita standing right there, and yet she's like being so great. Like it's borderline soap opera until just because they haven't said anything to each other yet.
But Rosita seemed pretty cool. Like she didn't seem too pissed about it. She just was all right.
Because that in this kind of environment, you can't just lose your cool every 10 seconds. But at the same time, it's kind of a dick move to like just be sitting there.
Like your cigar, Abraham. Enjoy your shift. Yeah. See you later. And then,
what doesn't help is that they are family. They have come to this town together. It's not like he met someone in Alexandria that's new. He met somebody. He's gotten to know someone that he's already been with better. That's been in their group and that they've helped each other survive throughout this time.
No, yeah, it's definitely awkward. Any way you slice it, but I guess that was the whole point, right?
It's awkward, but it's a matter of we have so many things we're dealing with. It's like, okay, now we have like love triangle drama we have to deal with also. Like, what's the CW? What's happening?
They kind of had that in the comic though. They never really got into it, but with with Michonne and Tyrese, and that was kind of like a love triangle that went on in the comics that we didn't get in the show. So
I think Kirkman and what's his face, the others, they wisely graphic novels. I think they wisely kind of
Adler,
thank you, Adler. I think they wisely got around to doing that more and just kind of focus on other things. Now that said, there's other romantic entanglements that happen in the graphic novel that cause issue in various ways, but I don't know. It's not in the show nearly enough yet to make me that bothered by it. But at the same time, I don't want it to head more down that path than it has to.
Yeah. I mean, this brings I think they need to, because for a while it just was this group of warriors that had no romantic kind of, sexual tension, even. There was none of that there. It's good that they're sprinkling a little bit of that in, because I think it's very normal. I think it's a very human thing to have happen when you live close like that with people.
For sure. If a little bit goes a long way, I agree with that. With that in mind, Daryl and Carol haven't hooked up, and they're the most compelling characters in terms of relationships on the show. So it's
right. The original
I don't think we need to go full Rick, Shane, Laurie either. Where it's the cause of like immense conflict. It's like, okay, we've done.
Let's stop for a second, by the way. Point out how awesome John Bernthal is on Daredevil's Punisher right now.
Best Punisher ever.
They're just off of the show, aren't they? Just for him, they were saying. I read that. Oh, okay.
Well, they may.
Hoping. Okay.
There's nothing concrete.
Gotcha.
We'll see where that goes. But regardless, I very much enjoyed John Bernthal's post-Walking Dead career so far.
Yes. I still like him in Wolf of Wall Street because he played just that over the top caricature of a guy. Anyway, back to the present.
Rick and Michonne have an apple.
Yes, they do. They share an apple in bed. Absolutely.
Yes. I thought their conversation was extremely interesting because Rick is like, the world is ours. We know how to take it.
I took some notes here. I wrote it down. He said a few things. He goes, when they come for us, we'll end it. The whole thing. This won't be like before. He goes, we're putting everything in place, et cetera, et cetera. The world is ours, and we know how to take it. Everything we need is right here inside these walls. Pretty powerful stuff coming from Rick. His head is definitely screwed on straight, although Morgan doesn't seem to think so.
Hilltop delivered on what they promised.
They got some apples there.
Got some apples.
Cool. Jesus came through.
This is probably the most likable Rick's been in a while, actually. I think in this episode. I think the scenes with him and Michonne and with him and Morgan. I think presents him not necessarily like one's correct and one's wrong aspect. I don't think that's the point either. It's more of a subjective stance you can take. But I think the conversations he's having and the attitude he has towards it, which is capped off at the end by a protein bar comment, I think it really presents Rick as a person. Hey, that's right. This is our hero. We should be liking this guy, which I don't think we get very much, very often in a while.
Yeah, he's in his best place right now. I think he really is. He's his strongest place.
Clearly, that'll come crashing down next week.
He'll start answering telephones at no one's at the other end and seeing things. And okay, right.
Like no telephones out of 6 at this point and just start yelling into them.
So yeah, there's a comment related.
I'm sorry, you'll have a jar that has Coral's dead eye in it and start talking to that. That's the crazy that Rick will go through. I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say there's a comment I want to make related to Rick and Michonne that I'll save until a little bit later because it's more relevant to that than it is to this. But it's funny they even have the kind of bit. Rick wants to kind of get to business and having a little morning fun, and Michonne is like, no, I'm not pissing off the pregnant lady.
Yeah, it's cute.
Which I thought was cool on multiple levels. We've kind of seen the shift in Maggie, and the fact that she's trying to stay, in this regiment like this, Michonne is, and a lot of it because of Maggie. It's really showing that I see Maggie becoming more of a, I guess, like becoming Deanna, like more Deanna's replacement and a leader than Rick. Almost like Rick is the Secretary of Defense, whereas Maggie would be the president.
And Rick's the Dick Cheney in this scenario.
There you go.
No, I know.
Make Maggie George Bush. I don't know.
That's a loose comparison, but I know what you're saying, Russ. I completely agree. I do like the work that they've done with Maggie this season, which has been somewhat on the low and a bit kind of scattershot, but they've been doing stuff to her that's really kind of pumped her up to kind of taking on a leadership role, which will, I imagine, assuming she lives next week, take on an even greater degree next season.
And she even negotiated with the Hilltop people. I remember that was part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think Rick is fine with that. I think Rick is okay with, look, I'm going to make sure that we're safe. I'm going to make sure these people are trained. I'm going to make sure that, when it comes to decisions about keeping us safe, that's my domain, and I'm going to assert that. But as far as everything else goes, as far as like, making sure the trains run on time and all that other kind of stuff, like Maggie is well suited for that. And I think it takes a load off of his shoulders. Because for a while, Rick felt like, the whole dictatorship thing, right? Like he's got to make all of the decisions, and he's or none of them, right? Like when they went to the prison, and it was like, I'm just going to go farm, let everybody else figure all this out, and I'm not going to do squat.
I think a great balance.
I think he's found his balance.
He knows his limitations now, and that's what's making him so strong. He knows what he's good at. He knows when to back off a little bit. He's in his best place for sure.
Which is why I really like his scenes with Morgan. I think the way he has to handle himself there, he's at a point where he can not just rail against another person who diverts from Rick's opinion, resulting in the death of various Richards, but like actually listen to what someone has to say, and have well-written conversations. I get on the show all the time about his writing, but this week, well, the episode to me honestly isn't that great. I do think the writing for scenes involving Rick and Morgan and Michonne and a couple other characters is quite strong, and I commend the show for that.
They're definitely in a groove right now. You can feel it. Yeah, the writing, the actors, everyone's just in a really nice groove right now.
As far as like dialogue-based scenes, I can agree. As far as plot stuff, we'll get to that, and even kind of pacing, which is also directorial. We'll get there. But I mean, in terms of delivering the philosophies of these characters for a show that's never big on subtlety and very big on philosophizing, it's been doing it a lot better than it has in the past.
Yeah. So it's funny, after all that talk about how we all need to be strong, they're coming for us, we're going to make our stand, we're going to stomp them out, we're going to prevail. They all decide that everybody has to leave to go on their own little personal agenda.
Daryl bugs out.
Yeah.
He's still mourning over Denise. He really regrets leaving that guy alive, Dwight.
For every 2 steps forward for the writers, they take 1 step backwards. Like on the one hand, I get like this great stuff involving dialogue between characters I want to care about, and then on the next hand, I have the decision made. In order to make this plot work, we need to send out our heaviest hitters: Michonne, Rick, Rosita, Daryl, Glenn, all on a mission, leaving Alexandria occupied by a couple people that I can probably rely on, the people that most likely will get killed. Like it's
here's what's worse than that though. It's like okay, I understand they went out of the wall, but they went out to chase somebody again. I'm tired of seeing this. One person leaves for whatever reason on a quest on a mission, on walkabout, on a hunt for something, and they send another group of people to look after these people. It's like, enough already. We've seen that.
They went off on their own accord. They did not.
Right.
It's not,
Don't send more people out after them. It's always looking for people.
It's not like Coral's missing. We need to find Coral. It's
Right.
Carol
Right.
got out because she left a very clear note about why she left. Yet we're going to drag her back
And send 3 of their best warriors. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, right. 3 of them ultimately after her. Yeah, come on.
There's
Daryl anyway.
there's kind of a philosophy in the fire department that we're always drilled into our head, and this is a terrible thing to come to terms with. But when it gets to the point where you know that person can't be saved, and then you try and go after them to save that person, you're endangering yourself and them, which will endanger somebody else because they're going to have to go after both of your dumbasses. So it's kind of funny. So whenever I see that, it just kind of takes me back to that. It's like no, you have to. It's terrible, but you have to be selfish. You have to just think of yourself when you know that you're kind of in a no-win situation because you're just going to get somebody else hurt. So it's just kind of odd to see that play out in this manner. But
yeah, couldn't Daryl be on a mission somewhere looking for supplies? I mean, all right, that's something. He doesn't check back in. He get a radio transmission gets okay. Then I can see them sending people after him, but just him leaving pissed. You don't get 3 of the best people right after him. That's the part that really bothered me, honestly.
And more with that, I mean, that's why Daryl. It feels like the show doesn't know what they want to do with him. Like, once you get rid of Beth, I mean, as much as I like the Carol-Daryl relationship, there's not much to it. There's not much to do beyond how them interact every now and then. That doesn't fuel plot lines. And so you take away the other thing that was a big part of his life, which is Beth. There's nowhere for him to go that the writers seem to want to explore. They just want to make him get angry when they need him to get angry. And so then he leaves, and then we get to like some random side Daryl plot where he probably does something that only superheroes can accomplish, and goes right back to the group again. So if he dies next week, I'm not going to say good riddance, but at the same time, I can see why that choice would be made. He doesn't serve much of a purpose here.
Be careful, Aaron. You are technically skirting the line of inciting a riot right now. Okay?
I'm skirting it, but I'm also challenging the writers to make me care about Daryl more. And I'm hard pressed to wonder what the people that say if Daryl dies, we write, what it is that they see in him besides hunky Norman Reedus.
yeah. I think it's interesting the way he latched himself on to Denise, though. You know, it was.
But did he or did she latch on him? Like,
no, I think it was the other way around.
They both had brothers.
That's true. Okay,
I think that's what it comes down to. I think they both had brothers, and they were just starting to relate to something, and it's a mix of that with the I could have done something to stop this from happening by killing this guy, and now this guy's out there. He took away someone that was connecting to me for a person. Now here's where I examine Daryl and talk about how complex the character he is after degrading the presence of
shallow. Good right?
But this is stuff that the writers could do more with. Where this is a man who's come out of a terrible relationship with a brother and father, we assume, has had a terrible life, and is now making something new himself, which was explored with him with Aaron in the previous season. Like there were like strides to make him go from being a loner to a person that wants to bring people into life.
A recruiter. It gave him a cause. It gave him a purpose. It gave him friends. Even it gave him Aaron and his boyfriend. It gave him friends.
Yeah, but because this season has done so little with Aaron, who was one of the people that was striking a relationship with Daryl. I have nothing that I'm supposed to attach to. But
where's Aaron? There you go. He's back too. Yeah.
Did his boyfriend die? I forget.
No, Eric's still around.
You know, like we're just leaving things up in the air, and that's what's frustrating to me. It's not that I want characters to die. It's just I like them to see some kind of purpose if we're supposed to root for them so often. And Daryl seems like a person I should be rooting for. He kills tanks and people with rocket launchers. That's the guy I want to stand behind. But I don't know why I don't have anything to stand behind him for. I have the fragments of a character that are here that seem like they lead to great storylines, but instead we just see him go off in a huff every time he gets angry.
Yeah, good point. Did you guys notice that little shot as Glenn and gang were driving out? That shot of Maggie standing at the gate in the rearview mirror, the side view mirror, I should say.
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit there. So originally it was going to be Abraham and Glenn that were going to go after Daryl and
Michonne too.
Michonne. But Rosita talked Abraham into staying and her going because she said, look, you need to be here. There needs to be somebody strong that stays behind. So she goes. So there's 2 things going on here that have me a little more in the Glenn's gonna die camp, and that's they made such a big deal of the 2 of them, the whole shower scene, right? Them reconnecting physically and emotionally. The fact that they kind of had their time together, and then he went off, but he didn't really get to. It's almost like he left and didn't say goodbye. Like he didn't tell Maggie. It was a quick, and obviously it was a quick decision that had to be made. They realized if Daryl was able to get too far away, then going after him was probably pointless. And then I get to if Rick is happy with someone, that someone's not going to make it. With Michonne. I mean, we saw with Lori, with Jesse. Just every time he gets close to a female, that female isn't long for this world. But again, and a little later on, even we see where Glenn kind of has this poignant moment when he talks to when he's talking to Daryl about going after those guys, and it's just like, man, every time somebody has kind of like Denise had last week, where it's just like somebody has something poignant to say, it's like, yeah, that's not a good sign for them being around for very much longer.
Well, Glenn did some speechifying too later on in this episode a bit.
Exactly. That's and I was like, man, I think he's a goner. I think he's not gonna make it.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards that too. But who knows? It's up in the air. But they did that shot was very on target. They showed her Maggie in that side view mirror, like that's the last time he's going to see her. That was very on the nose.
Because I mean, obviously, I think we know that the finale has emotional impact. Like, okay, if they kill Rosita, is that going to have emotional impact?
Not really at all.
I don't think they're going to kill Daryl because of what happens to him at the end of this episode. So that would seem like redundant.
So you think he's off the hook now because
I think he's off the hook. I do. I really do. Morgan's kind of off on something. Carol, again, I think people would be upset about it, but I don't think it would have the emotional weight. And I don't think Maggie's going to go because she's at home. And whether or not she miscarries or not, maybe that's the emotional scene that's just really tough for him. But I mean, the only one I can think of that really would have that impact to everyone would be Glenn because of him as a character. So I don't know. They're
doing a good job of trolling us this year. They're keeping us thinking a million different directions. I guess that's the whole idea because the whole world knows what's in the comic book. So they're trying to keep us guessing up until the last minute. I guess I give them credit for that.
So this week they made sure to say he'll be all right after shots get fired.
Yeah, he'll be all right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. It's a lot of blood. Okay, all right, it's fine.
So cutting back to Carol. So fairly early on in the episode, we find out what the cold open was, and it was Carol driving along in her porcupine mobile down the road, and presumably what we see as saviors come along and just shoot out her tire, mess up her car. And then this is kind of like a rehash from 2 episodes ago, right? Where she's got her rosary, she's starting to have a panic attack, she's trying to play the I'm Nancy from Montclair, I'm just just some lady that's on her own. And of course these guys are smart enough, they figure out, no, you're from Alexandria. Like we know because we saw a car that that
we saw a blue golf just like that with spikes out of it. Yeah. Okay, we know that you're from Alexandria.
That's where you came from. And they did it really well because of course she has the rosary, and it even fooled me. I don't know if it fooled you guys, it shouldn't have fooled me, but it did fool me. Where you hear the machine gun fire, and I'm like, oh man, like who is that Rick and I didn't think it was Rick and Morgan. I knew it wasn't Daryl. I was like, maybe it was like some other, I don't know, maybe somebody else that was coming to the rescue. And then they cut over to Carol and smoke coming from her sleeve and it's all ratty and everything. And she had, and then obviously we cut back to her sewing her jacket. It's like, she sewed the gun into her jacket. So again, do we think like what's going on with Carol? Like I'm very flustered when I try and kind of get my thoughts out about what's going on with Carol, and it's perplexing me because I can't. It's like in my head I kind of sort of know what I want to say, and then I start to articulate that, and I sound like a bumbling idiot because it just doesn't.
I think the show wants me to believe that Carol is having legit problems with killing people now. I think the show also wants me to believe that these panic attacks that she has, this one in particular, is real. I have a problem with the fact that the writers are insisting on this to be a thing all of a sudden, and while I understand there was some setup done to make this seem like it naturally occurred, I do feel like it's a little more all of a sudden than they would like me to think it is. I also think that the performance of said panic attacks are not working for me in the way that should be more effective. And I don't like disparaging Melissa McBride in that regard because I think she has done a terrific job with Carol for the most part. But whatever direction she is being given to convey the fact that she's supposedly having a panic attack, which in this episode I really don't think is a ruse, I think it's an actual panic attack she's supposed to be going through, it's not getting to me in the way I think it should be. That doesn't take away from what I think is a tense scene, but I do think there is more that the show wants me to believe in than I'm willing to accept right now.
They're not handling this crisis that Carol is supposedly having right now very well. I don't know if she's not acting it well or if the writing's not giving her much to work with, but either way, this crisis, she went really from a ruthless killer, Rambo, ultimate warrior of the group, to this panic attack, hyperventilating. It's almost like she reminds me of like the Incredible Hulk. Like, once you hear the hyperventilating, she's going to flip out and start killing everybody, but she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to turn to the Hulk. She doesn't want to go back to that Carol, but she's got these multiple personalities now. I don't know where this is all coming from. I really don't.
The fact that she sews the machine gun into the jacket,
right.
It's like she did that for
that's
a reason.
Rambo. That's a Rambo side of her. She has two sides of her personality. She's got the crucifix, or excuse me, the rosary side of her, and she's got the Rambo side of her. And there's a battle going on. Obviously, she's planning for the.
Yeah, that's exactly. She's planning for the worst. It's not as while she may have trouble with what she's being presented with. She's also not. She's still smart enough to know that it's better to be prepared for having to take on various adversaries than just having this kind of reflection period that just leaves her vulnerable.
Right.
But it's weird because in her letter or Morgan didn't, when Morgan's talking to Rick, he says like she came to the realization that if she had to kill, she couldn't stay here. Like if staying here meant she would have to kill people, then she couldn't do it. But yet she goes on the road and prepares for the fact that she's going to have to kill. So it just, I'm very, like I said, I'm very of two minds with this. I agree with what you're saying, Aaron. Like the whole panic attack thing, it feels to me like she's somebody that's faking a real panic attack.
She did fake it last time, right? In the last episode, or the two episodes ago.
I don't know.
Honestly, after this episode, I'm more questionable about that fact.
Oh, I see.
I wanted to believe that. I mean, obviously there was a ruse being presented in terms of how she was presenting herself in terms of being capable in action. But at the same time, the actual panic attack that she was going through, I'd still like to believe that was a ruse. But after watching this episode, I'm not sure what the show wants me to believe. I'm not sure if she was like trying to hyperventilate in that episode, right? Like, and I don't.
Right, and she did that again. That's her signal. That's her like when the eyes go blue in the Incredible Hulk. That's when she's hyperventilating. She's losing it. She's gonna go ballistic and kill people at that point.
I almost keep waiting for her to have a turn, right? Like go from hyperventilating to just go from like deadpan, glazed over look and just going completely psycho. And that
exactly, I agree. It seems like it's like a thing that she's doing to get you close, and then when you're close, she attacks. But we don't get that striking moment. We just get like a natural snap to whatever the thing's going to be without having the kind of satisfaction of knowing this is what I was doing all along.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
Very weird.
And I don't get. And maybe if they would have worked on this earlier, but I don't get what the switch was. Like, what was the switch that turned to make her feel like that? Like, what was the turn? Because with the whole thing with the wolves and everything else, she was lambasting Morgan for the fact that he wouldn't kill that person.
Yeah, what made her turn was when she saw the wolf that saved Denise, that kidnapped Denise, but ultimately saved her.
It's a mix of that
from the window.
It's a mix of that and the Sam death. I mean, those are clearly what should be the. Those are what should be the signals as to why the change is happening. But I don't feel like even as someone that recognizes that those things as being the reasons why they're happening, it doesn't feel like the show's for a show that does not trap in subtlety very often. It feels like it's playing this really close to the vest. I'm supposed to glean all of this information based off these two things.
Versus a glance and leaving cookies at a gravesite or something. Like, these are too subtle. We're not seeing the transformation. Again, we talked about this, I think last episode, the episode before. She needed a scene with Morgan to kind of have her more in his way of thinking and start the process of converting her from ultimate killer to someone that has feelings about killing.
Mm-hmm. I think if she would have directly witnessed the way Sam froze and kind of freaked out a little bit, I think maybe I'd give it a little more credence because then she was like, man, this kid freaked out because I scared the hell out of him. Like it was like she would have taken stock with her behavior a little more, but she didn't witness that. So she only knows like, well, the kid got killed. Like, I don't know. It just seems like either a lot of stuff happened off screen that they're not telling us, or they just needed to, it could be just, they just need to move it along. They needed Carol to be in this spot. And that's just the way it is. That's a decision they decided to write her to, and they just didn't have as much time to flesh it out maybe as much as they wanted to.
That's true.
I don't know. I struggle with what is really going on inside her head. Like, what's a ruse, what's not a ruse, what's she trying to do?
A couple of things. The truck scene, though, in general, was very cool. I like it. And the Talking Dead, they call them truck dicks, so we can definitely pick that up. I think that's very appropriate. The leader, we find out his name is Hero. I like all these characters are introducing, they kill off really quick. I really kind of like them, these saviors, but either way, very cool scene, very tense. The way she shoots him up, the spear through the impales one of the driver that pops out of the. It's a really well shot scene, good action. I think it was nice. But right before the scene, however, there was a commercial break, and during that commercial break, we had something called Flight 462 happen. So, Aaron, I don't know if you think it's that time, but I think it's that time.
Oh my God, is it time for the Flight 462 podcast?
It is time for the Flight 462 podcast, and here we go.
Oh boy, this week.
This week, I'll take it from here. Oxygen masks drop down as the cabin loses pressure. The Asian lady buckles herself in next to the kid, puts the mask on the kid, doesn't put one on herself, and she apologizes to the kid, saying that your parents should be here, and I'm sorry about that, and that's the end of Flight 462 this week anyway.
Oh man, this episode, this was really, penultimate episodes are pretty great sometimes when you're really excited for what the finale's going to bring you. They really set the pieces up. This was checkmate, guys. This one.
Now, someone on our Facebook group said that they're going to extended Flight 462 to match the extended 90-minute episode of The Walking Dead to finalize Flight 462. So they're on final approach.
45 seconds.
I don't know if that's true or not. We're going to do 2 segments. I'm not sure. But either way, Aaron, I'm sorry to tell you, Flight 462 is coming to an end next week.
Yeah, but we don't. The renewals are still out there, guys. So I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm pretty optimistic that the reviews have been soaring for Flight 462. Good app.
Yeah. So do we want to talk about Morgan and Rick?
Yeah. There's a quick scene right before that. Maggie and Enid have a quick convo in the pantry.
Yes.
And Enid offers to take a shift from pregnant Maggie, give her some pickles. A nice little bonding scene. I like the little relationship between those two right now. It's kind of developing into like a sister type of relationship, and I do like it.
Yeah.
It's fine. I don't do anything to say about Enid. She doesn't-
I like the character of Enid. For some reason, I think she's a really talented young actress, and gives her something to do.
I don't
at
like.
least.
Yeah, I don't like her character, but I'm hoping if they're working to change her character, which I think is a positive thing because something had to give with her.
I mean, just going off into the woods by herself and pouting.
Yeah.
JSS and just okay. She needed something else. Okay.
Yeah, that wasn't working for me. So Morgan and Rick decide they're going to go after Carol, and they have a disagreement about which direction she was headed. And of course, Morgan was right. And they finally come up to the wreckage, and they're kind of trying to piece together everything. And Morgan sees the blood, and then they wander off there. But this is where I guess kind of the meat of the episode is. And Morgan and Rick kind of have this conversation about Carol and what's going on with Carol and why she left. And again, kind of like we talked about earlier with the whole bit about how if she realized that if she had to kill to stay, she couldn't stay. And then Morgan tells Rick what happened. Like, again, it's this cause and effect thing, right? Butterfly effect, whatever you want to call it, where, Morgan says, look, I ran into this wolf guy, I didn't kill him. He followed me back, because I ran into him while I was looking to catch up back with you. He obviously followed, them to Alexandria.
Yeah.
I put him basically put him where the jail is.
That conversation happened later. Either way, I mean, it was part of the Rick and Morgan
Yeah,
conversation.
I mean, just part of the whole thing. But it just, they kind of go on about this whole thing. And Rick, and again, I think this kind of gets what you're saying, Aaron, about how the way Rick handled it, because, he talks about that. And, he basically said, look, the only reason that, the fact that I saved this guy's life and didn't kill him may be why Carl is still alive. Because if we'd outright killed him, Denise would have been stuck. She wouldn't have been saved. And she'd be dead. And if she was dead, she wouldn't have been able to save Carl.
Yeah,
now, the argument could have been made that if he would have killed him, he would have never taken her hostage in the first place to take her out there. But
yeah, the logic didn't follow for me. Again, this conversation happened a bit later, but it was part of the conversations with Rick and Morgan, so I guess it's cool. But either way, I mean, that logic did not carry for me, because I don't think if Denise wasn't taken to hostage, or at least taken to mend this guy's wounds, she still would have been okay in the infirmary theoretically. And when Carl was brought in, she'd be there to help him. So I don't follow the logic on that one. It wasn't clear enough for me on that.
I see what the point of that kind of conversation is, where things did line up in a way that did become favorable. And you have to just kind of, depending on what side you want to go with, there is an optimism in what Morgan's trying to say that's trying to rule out here. And what I think works about it is that Rick is, it's not as if he's just downright opposing what this man has to say to him. He's taking careful consideration of what that is, and they may differ on ideologies as opposed to something else that didn't differ too much in ideologies this weekend in the movie. But the overall, there's a level of respect that these two have for each other that you can understand. And I think Lenny James and Andrew Lincoln, they just have really good chemistry together. And so regardless of what your own kind of moral understanding of the situation is, I do think how they handle it is very intriguing. It's a scene in this episode where I'm like, I like hearing what these two have to say to each other. I don't care about if I agree with one side more than the other. I just like hearing these two actors working together on this kind of thing.
Like I said last week, I could see a whole episode of Eugene and Abraham. I would love to see a whole episode of just Rick and Morgan, and maybe not this Morgan. Maybe hopefully Morgan has a change of heart. Something happens to him. His arc starts to develop, and he becomes a total just crazy killer again. That's what I want to see. Those two just go off on a mission. They spend the whole episode just those two. The great actors.
Well, in terms of acting efficiency, they could probably get it done. But in terms of interest, I mean, if you make Morgan into a killer, that's basically what Rick is at this point. I mean,
Okay.
they have a similar standpoint if they were to both be ones that were to kill, because it's not like, I mean, as much as I enjoy seeing Rick kind of go all out when it comes to killing people, it's not as if he does it blindly. He does recognize what he's doing. And this again is an episode where we get a chance to see Rick stab somebody in the face whenever he gets an opportunity.
That was great.
Yeah. Rick's not gonna pass that one up.
The guy was on the street. He started, where'd she go? Where's that woman? No answer. Boom, right through the head. That's it. Gone.
yeah. But Morgan took the gun in the end. Like he did.
I was surprised. I was surprised that. Yeah.
Again, I don't think we're going to see the Morgan that we saw from back when, but I wonder if one's going to rub off on the other. That Rick maybe is going to rethink things a little bit.
Okay.
Because one of the things earlier, before this, they had a conversation about Carol when she was let go, when Rick cast her out. Basically like, wait a minute, you're willing to risk your life now to come after her and to risk all this, knowing what could go on back in Alexandria, and you think of her in such high regard, but you tossed her away. Like,
that was an interesting conversation, because he even said, "What would you have done?" Well, back then you banished her. He goes, "Now I would have helped her. I would have been the one to do it. Are you kidding me? She made the right decision. She saved our group. They were sick. They were going to die anyway. That's a big turn for where Rick is actually dropping her off and stranding her back in season 4.
And to me, it brought up a lot of very fascist ideals, right? Or very, where it's like, okay, so what, the weak and the sick are put down because they're, potential liability to the, it's like, it's the fact that he has come around and was like, no, I don't take any more chances.
He says it again. He said,
like,
I don't take chances anymore.
It's like, whoa, like, okay, where do you draw that line? Okay, these people were sick, and possibly infecting everybody else, and there's lack of medicine and everything, so they had to be put down. It's like, where do you draw the, to me, it was kind of a throwaway thing that was said, but to me, it just kind of drug up all this stuff. In this kind of society, if you're rebuilding from scratch and there's no laws, there's no rules, you kind of make it up as you go until, conceivably, I'm guessing they hope that at some point down the road, whenever that may be, they'll be able to establish a real government or real rules. And this mentality of, well, if somebody's a threat to the livelihood of the whole, then they need to be taken out. I just found it a little fascinating. They just kind of.
But can you blame Rick though? I mean, everything he's been through. So let's go back to season 4, right when he dropped off Carol. From that moment, the governor attacked. All right, he lost his home. He lost everything. Could have killed. They could have dealt with the governor, but they didn't. They let him survive, and look what happened to the prison. Then they get to Terminus, and you know what happened with those maniacs. Before they even got to Terminus, they had the claimers to deal with. Then after that, they had, the people in the hospital. He's dealt with so many killers out there that it's like he's lost too many of his people around him. That why? Well, he doesn't take chances anymore. It makes sense to where he is today.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I just thought it was an interesting thing about. Like I said, I thought it was interesting to. Just kind of like expand on that. Like, okay, it was such a throwaway thing for him to say, but when you think about it in a larger context, it's like, what does that, what does that mean?
Everyone they've left alive that they shouldn't have has caused them death and trouble. That's the overall message that Rick is living at this point. That's his philosophy he's going by now. Every single person. They could have killed the governor, didn't. Could have killed the termites, but they didn't. When the place was on fire. So then they came back and got Bob. We can go through on and on all people he should have killed and didn't, and now Daryl's living that, unfortunately.
To Morgan's credit, and although the show has presented us with enough reasons for why Rick needs to think a certain way, to Morgan's credit, the one time that we got to see him actually enact his plan of keeping someone alive, it did work.
Yeah. And I'm not even talking so much about people like at the time where it's like, should I kill this person or not because they've done horrible things. I'm talking about people. It's like those people were just sick. Like they weren't a threat to them, like to their safety directly or or physically. They were just infected with some sort of super flu or something like that. Like where do you? That's the part to me. Like obviously if somebody's done you harm and you decide to show them mercy, that's something different. Because there's actual cause for you to do what you're doing. But it's like, okay, so what if somebody has no legs and their liability? It's like that's the part that I was kind of extrapolating when it came to when she burned, was it David?
Karen and David, yeah.
Karen and David. Yeah. It's just like, okay, where do you draw that line as to when somebody should be put down because they're not a direct threat, but an indirect threat. And I don't know.
I hope people are enjoying listening to this because I do think this is the most interesting stuff in this episode. So we should keep going. We should move on.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Rosita, Glenn, and Michonne doing their thing.
Absolutely.
So obviously they find where they come across the spot where Denise was dead. Rosita took them back there. Michonne was able to find Daryl's motorcycle. I thought that was cool. He tried to hide it, but Michonne's just so much of a badass. She was able to find it. And of course they go in the woods looking for what was I forget his name.
Dwight, but call me D. Yeah.
Dwight. Looking for. I thought it was odd that they would still be.
I don't know what they're doing. Honestly, like why would
They were in camp near there. They weren't like there at the tracks. They were nearby. Daryl Dixon's on the case, man. He'll find you. He's a tracker, so he.
Yeah, but like if you've already been kind of ambushed there or ambushed somebody, wouldn't you be like, oh, time to close this place up and move? Because it's not like they're in a secure
You
location.
don't know how far they are from the tracks.
I just thought it was a lot.
You don't know how far away they are. So.
Yeah, but
it wasn't that far.
I don't think
they went to the same location and pretty much stumbled across them pretty easily. It's not like they walked for days in a different. It's not like they kept going east.
yeah. So obviously they catch up to Daryl, which was cool because Daryl's doing his Daryl thing and he hears something and turns around and fires his bow. And
I think it's a fire shot to indicate I see you. Stop stalking me. Here's a warning shot.
Yeah, no, good fair point.
That was a good one.
And of course, then they had it out, and this is where Glenn kind of has a speech where it's like, "Look, man, we will get them. We will make this right. We will square this up, but not now. Like, you can't do this now. We know all this bad stuff is going to happen. We need all hands on deck back at Alexandria, and I'm not willing to go with you on this. Like, I understand why. He's basically saying, I understand why you're here and what you're doing, but you got to stop. You're too important to us, and we're too important to be gone this long.
And not only does this plan fail, but Rosita jump ship also.
yeah. Daryl's just like, sorry, man, I can't do it. And Rosita's like, yeah, I'm going with him. And so, of course, Michonne and Glenn decide to go back, and of course that's when they get ambushed.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on Rosita's motivation at that point. Is she seeking revenge for Denise's death, or is it something else?
I think it's a mix of emotions. Where I think it was because Denise was honestly, I think it's a bit shallow just because I don't know enough about Rosita. But I think what Denise was hinting at last week of Rosita feeling empty, and that they've taken basically that person that seemed to understand her away from her is her main motivation.
Yeah.
Respect for having one of their own taken away and seeing this person who's more than capable of being able to handle himself. She'd like to tag along with that person to help her, get some kind of vengeance.
Probably looking to work out a little aggression herself.
Okay, it worked. I just wasn't clear why she's okay. I'm going with him too. It's like I understood it, but I'm like, why? Maybe something else I'm missing here. All right.
Are we going to just get back to the flanking and move back to other stuff before we get back to the very end of this episode? I guess because it cuts commercial when Glenn and Michonne are like flanked, right? So
yeah.
So like we get okay. Because next is Morgan and Rick again, and they go to a barn.
Yeah, so they go up to the barn. Well, first they did see somebody in the field that looked a lot like Carol, which I thought was it's like okay,
fake Carol. And he used her stunt double according to Talking Dead. Yeah,
stunt double. Yeah,
getting trolling us. Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah. So they get to the barn and the guy's like, "Hey, I'm looking for my horse. Did you see my horse?" And Rick is like, "Yeah, you're probably full of crap. I don't trust you or believe you." And then of course they get attacked by zombies. They're able to put him down, and that's when Rick and Morgan kind of have this conversation. And Morgan is like, "Look, I will go find her. You need to get back. You have to be back at Alexandria. I will go find her." And it was kind of cool because he also said, "If I don't come back, don't come looking for me," which I thought was interesting because it was almost like. It may not be because I'm dead. It may just be because I decided I don't want to be there anymore. So I thought it was kind of like it kind of worked both ways. And it was kind of an interesting. And Rick kind of understood it. He's like, okay, I'm going to let him do his thing. And I think at this point it's like, okay, these two are kind of on Carol and Morgan are kind of on a similar path. Like where Carol wants to be more on Morgan's path than on the path she's been. And so it's probably best if Morgan goes to find her. And obviously they've been gone for quite a while. They were obviously going to have to keep going further in order to find her. And so I think that, again, I think it gets back to this changes in Rick, right, where he was willing to relent. Old Rick would have just kept on going. He'd have been like, no, shut your pie hole. I'm going to stick this out to the end. And I think new Rick is kind of willing to listen and reason, and especially Morgan, because I think like you said, Aaron, they do have kind of this respect for each other.
Rick's technically known Morgan the longest of every single person on the show besides Carl. So.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
A couple of things real quick in the scene. Morgan had a line, "People can come back, Rick." We've heard that before. That line, that particular notion, we've heard that. I remember Herschel saying it, a few others. So that's dropped in there. Also, Rick tries to shoot the farmer who has the spear, and Morgan deflects his shotgun and knocks his hand and knocks his gun, so he couldn't shoot him. Yeah. And they have a discussion like, Rick's like, this guy is a savior. He's got a spear. Morgan's like, listen, man, he's got a spear, but what if he's from Hilltop? What if he just found the spear? It was interesting. At that point, I'm like, well, Morgan could be right there. You really don't know who this guy is with the spear.
It's not in this scenario. It's like Rick's shooting a shadow at this point. He's about to
shooting a guy running away looking for his horse. He's not a group of saviors that are trying to kill him.
He's trying to end the life of someone who he does not know, like by from anything. Like so, that's completely Morgan's in the right in this scenario here.
Listen, I don't take chances anymore.
The biggest thing I got out of this scene, though, is that Rick explained to Morgan that Michonne did steal that last protein bar. I mean,
which was awesome.
That was great.
Oh my god, that was so awesome. I laughed so hard.
Because it's a human moment there. He's showing some humor. You never see Rick really smile or throw any humor around, so just to drop that little nugget in, it's like, oh my goodness, he made a joke.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because he was setting it up to be this profound thing that he was going to say. He's
Morgan.
Like, hey, it was what she showed that bar.
And Lenny James is such a great actor. He has that smile, the half smile, he goes, I know she did. Like, it was just great. Like, I can see a whole hour of that. That's perfect.
Okay, let's see. Maggie gets a haircut.
Rick returns to Alexandria. He waits at the gate with Abraham. They have a cute little scene together and kind of waiting for their women to come home. Although Sasha's back home, so I guess is Abraham waiting for Rosita? Okay.
No, he's on watch.
He's on the wall, I think. Yeah.
But they're waiting for them to come home. I guess the group to come home.
Just general concern, I think, because they know there are people out there looking for other people. Yeah. And Rosita didn't come back. Yeah, that's true. Also,
that's what I'm saying. Is he like, is he still feeling for nothing for Rosita? But I mean, he's close to her.
He genuinely cares about his people.
Exactly. Right. And then Enid goes to Maggie's place, cuts her hair. She needs that sleek warrior look. She just doesn't want anything extra. But then we see Maggie's in trouble.
She said, "I don't want anything to get in my way."
Thank you.
So again, I guess the long hair, for a lot of reasons, right? I mean, it's just like, so nobody can grab it. You can't be grabbed by the hair if it's long like that. Obviously, it's not going to get in your face if you're in the middle of doing something. I think too, it's a very easy female character type release. It applies to men too that have long hair. But generally in film and television, when you need a character to kind of make a decision, showing some kind of new beginning or whatever you want to call it, cutting the hair is a pretty symbolic one. That's pretty easy to get across. Yeah.
And we see that she's in trouble though. She starts having some cramps and some serious pains, and I guess they're foreshadowing a miscarriage. It seems like,
or bad gas,
maybe.
She has many pickles.
There you go.
Yeah, they did that weird thing.
I heard this.
It was a high pitch.
This is where I brag about my new surround system. I just installed in my house. I'm like, I'm really hearing some great sound.
Nice.
I just like all around me. It's like, oh man, this is great.
They wrapped up that weird sound effect, right? Yeah. And
so I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, I was curious because then I was like, well, that's and again, that's what the whole time I'm watching this episode, I'm like, okay, Glenn's a goner. And then this happens, and I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure they're not going to do Maggie as a goner, but maybe again, maybe the heartbreak is the miscarriage, and that way it kind of gets them around having to cast another infant to be in the.
I don't think we're worried much about that because how much of a what. She really stressing the viewers out because I don't hear from her. I know who I'm annoyed by on the show, and Judith's never been one of them. So.
Good kid. And then the last scene, obviously, Daryl and Rosita catch up to Glenn and Michonne, and they're tied up to a tree and gagged. But Dwight outsmarts Daryl somehow again, sneaks up behind him, and shoots him. Essentially,
this is the kind of thing I was afraid of, where you have weeks of us defeating the Saviors, right? We're just how great are we compared to the Saviors?
Just annihilating the Saviors, every one of them,
including the previous week where they seem more incompetent than ever because they had three of Rick and the gang, dead to rights, and they still messed that up. But this is the week where Daryl, the most, the superhero of the show, the man who's killed tanks and people with RPGs, somehow is outflanked by the guy that duped him the first time. Fool me twice. Dwight needs to get a medal because I don't know what he's doing right, but it's working against Daryl apparently.
He's got Daryl's number because usually Daryl's pretty tuned to what's coming up around him.
He's Daryl. He's essentially Swamp Thing. Like he should be able to just outdo anything in here.
Yeah.
Well, and
But I guess they were just, Glenn was like feverishly trying to tell him to, at first just like, no, don't do this. And then obviously he saw that Dwight was flanking him and tried to get his attention, but he couldn't speak. And so,
and a huge blood spatter.
Daryl needs to be smart about this. Daryl is not this dumb where you see your person clear, like, you're not dumb, right? You're watching Glenn make a face, even though he's a gag and can't talk. You understand you need to do something about this right now. Something bad is going to happen. Like, you're already watching your friend who's tied up. There's no mystery concerning the fact that they're in trouble, and that by making weird noises is not saying, hey, we're in trouble. It's saying, hey, be careful, there's crazy happening around you.
By the way, Dwight isn't around, and I'm tied up. Like, okay, why would it's like if he's not there,
why is Rosita and him just right next to each other? Like these two, like they know how to flank people, they know how to get a handle on a scene. It seems so. It seems just like there's so much machination to get you exactly where they need to be, as opposed to naturally following through on things, and that annoys me. I mean, that's not smart writing, guys. That's like that's we need to set this up for next week, and that's boring.
Yeah, and that's what gets me sometimes with the show is the unevenness. The zombies are as smart as they need to be to advance the plot. Like if they need to be slow and bumbling, where you could basically just kind of saunter up and stab in the head, they'll be that way. But if they need to, one random one walks and you don't hear it or see it, and it bites you on the back of the neck and you're dead. It's like that. It's like uneven in that respect, and stuff like this happens, and it's the same way. It's like, okay, we've seen countless examples of where this guy is the ultimate tracker and and gets one up on everybody, and yet a guy that he should be extremely wary of getting one up on him because he's done it already is able to get one up on him again. It's like
in terms of the blood splatter, Craig. I mean, I think it's a little stylized in terms of like we need to emphasize that someone got shot right now because they do immediately double back on it. It was like he'll be all right, which is I think it's
he'll be all right.
It happens so quick.
Which does spurt blood. I mean, well, it's obviously supposed to make you jump. It's supposed to make you think, Daryl just got shot. But and then it's like we don't want another dumpster Glenn situation, so let's make sure to add an ADR line saying he's all right.
Well, it's funny they were talking in The Talking Dead, and they're talking about people got shot. It's like Carl's been shot twice and he's still around. So it's like just get your shot doesn't mean it's you're dead. But yeah, so that's how we end the episode.
Yep.
So, our sponsor this week for the Walking Dead TV podcast is Discount Comic Book Service, DCBService.com. We are headed towards the end of the month, so new solicits aren't quite up yet, and you still have time to get in your March orders. So, if you want to get those in, do so quickly. So, next week we'll have a bunch of new solicits up that we should be able to talk about and clue everybody in on. But until then, definitely head on over to DCBService.com, where you can save a ton of money on all of your comic pre-orders, 20, 30, 50, even at times 75% off of new number ones they do occasionally. Always great deals, fantastic customer service, never have any problems with the orders. There's tons of Walking Dead related merchandise, of course, all of the trades, the current issues, any of the cool little knickknacks and figurines they have as well. And if you want to catch up on the older stuff, if you want to catch up on either the compendiums for The Walking Dead, or maybe you're into the hardcovers or the trade paperbacks, you can head on over to their sister site, InStockTrades.com, and you can save huge on all of the older Walking Dead related trades, hardcovers, omnibuy, compendiums. If there's a way that Robert Kirkman can package The Walking Dead, he will find a way and do so. So definitely head on over and check them out. We thank Discount Comic Book Service for their support of the Walking Dead TV podcast. Busters, who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Aaron.
I'm honestly at 3 Busters. I was less on this one than last week, which I had issues with based off just kind of the bookending of it, which was Carol's departure, where I like the two main plot lines. This week, I really like that Rick and Morgan stuff, and I wish I could celebrate the episode more for it because I want episodes to do more stuff like that more often. But I've had this problem for a few weeks now. I just feel like the pacing's been kind of off, where I watch these episodes and I'm wondering, we're still going, huh? We're still doing this, and we get to these points that seem like, all right, that's exciting too, just because based off a visceral reaction to something. But at the same time, very few things felt organic, where you have characters you don't need to be walking around, going outside places. You have them doing things that don't seem reasonable because we need to make sure the saviors are now suddenly a threat. And I'm calling the show out on their BS when it comes to like writing certain scenes that just feel very inorganic. So because of that, this episode, while it has good stuff in it, it's not a bad episode of television. It's just not a great episode of The Walking Dead. So I admire certain things, but not a ton of things. So I'm at a 3 out of 5.
I'll give it a 3.5. I've been giving these build-up episodes, last couple of them, like 3.75s. This one I really had a problem with because the motivations of these characters, as I alluded to earlier, is really driving me crazy. Again, we see people going out hunting for other people who are out on some quest. We've been there, we've done that. They could have handled the plot a little bit more smoothly. And again, looking for groups of people is not interesting to me. We've seen this before. We know they're all captured now. It's like spin the wheel. Who's going to get it next week? And they could have got to this point a little bit smoother. I did like the scenes with, like I said, with Morgan and Rick. That is awesome. That is some great acting right there. The whole scene at the truck with Carol, very, very cool. I like that as well. It would have been probably a little bit lower on my rating if I didn't enjoy those two aspects of this episode as much. But solid 3.5. The motivations and the plot could have been better. And as we all know, it seems like it's all going to be wrapped up, we hope, next week. And I think this is what everyone's been waiting for.
I didn't even get to how confusing I found the Carol stuff to be. Like, as much as I like that one scene, I really hate the ambiguity we're given on what actually happens by the end of that scene. But
Yeah, there's a blood trail. Like, where does she end up? Like, okay, is Morgan still going to track that trail?
yeah, so I don't want to go too much into it, but yeah, we have to wait till next week to figure that out. And, that's just,
And then one other thing about that, too, real quick. That second driver that was in the truck, he's following the trail, too.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't he on the trail looking for her?
we never pick back up with that guy.
Yeah. I mean, he's carrying her rosary right now. So who knows? Yeah.
I will give it a 3.75. I was going to give it a 3.5, but the protein bar callback bumped it back 4 point for me. But yeah, pretty much echo what you guys have said already. So, over at the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/WDTV podcast, we've got a pretty good Facebook group over there where we put up a Buster thread after every episode, or I should say, usually Aaron or Craig puts up the thread after every episode. So you could leave your Buster ratings after every episode. And so if you want to become a member, it is a closed group, but we pretty much will let everybody in. So if you want to be in on the group and post stuff and make comments and all that cool stuff, it's a pretty light group. We don't heavily police it, but there hasn't been any need to do so at this point anyway. So again, facebook.com/groups/WDTV.
749 members as of this recording. So 11 new since last week. Great group.
March into 1,000.
Big time.
Okay, so we will go through what the Facebook folks have said. First up, Cheryl Morris Goodman, 4.0 apples in bed out of 5. Honestly, this episode felt like herding cats. Why everybody had to go running off, I don't know. It's like the old horror film trope where people keep splitting off and going to look in the dirty, scary old barn all alone and you're screaming at the TV for them to just stay put. Tense episode overall.
Brent Jones writes, 4. So what happened to the savior that was following Rick? Out of 5. Does Dwight and Co. Benino just wander around the woods nonstop? At least this group is mostly competent like the rest of the saviors. Love Carol's gun sleeve.
DeRay Irvin says, I'm going to give this episode 3 stolen protein bars out of 5. Carl needs to tell Glenn and Daryl to stay the hell in the house. Yeah, that's a switch. I'm just so frustrated and concerned for every member of the group. Can't wait for next week's finale.
Susan Monk, 2.5 episodes killing time until Negan arrives out of 5. Really felt like a filler episode, and I didn't like that feeling at all. I did love all the love at the beginning of the episode, though. Hashtag
Yeah.
Mike Jones writes, 4 search parties and speeches out of 5. A little chatty and slow moving at times. Too many search parties of random people with a cause. I think Dwight shot Daryl in the shoulder, but nothing fatal. Dwight sure has some ninja hillbillies on his squad to get the drop on the gang week after next. Get to Negan, get to Lucille.
Oh, we're getting there. Max over 3 Hilltop Spears out of 5. This episode is exactly why I have a hard time rating these lately. It's well shot, looks great, acted well, solid writing, moves the story towards the finale, and yet I don't like it enough to give it a 4.
Adam Fata, I will give it 4 awful cliffhangers out of 5. Do we need another almost death fake out? I enjoyed the Carl, Rick, and Morgan parts of the episode.
Darren Appel writes, 4 Lucille engraved handguns out of 5. I would hate to mess with Carol when she is feeling bloodthirsty. Pacifist Carol is badass. Let us hope Morgan and Carol can settle differences and get back Alexandria in time to make a difference.
Carl Hooker, 4.5 Knights of Who Say Knee, running away out of 5. I actually really like this setup episode because I knew that's all it was going to be. I couldn't help like feeling a sense of dread around every corner and every speech. They've done a great job of scattering our group, so it's anyone's guess who goes next week. Right now, Glenn, Daryl, Morgan, Michonne, and Rosita are all in play. Even Maggie. Well, Carl, if you haven't yet, vote in the poll. We'll see what happens.
Roger Austin, 4 truckloads of incompetent saviors out of 5. Another great Carol moment. Really like the Morgan Rick interaction. Had Daryl been a part of the convo, he's have brought up sparing Dwight's life has led to. Maybe not every life is precious. Looks like Negan is finally showing up at the finale, which should lead to half a season of the saviors dominating our heroes. Both dreading and looking forward to seeing Lucille in action.
Karen writes, 3 stone-in shotguns out of 5. I love Carol's scene and thought it was a pretty clunky episode overall. Why did Glenn, Rosita, and Michonne have to reshoot Daryl? Like a tried way to get the ball in danger. Andrew Lincoln and Lady James are brilliant actors, but it's the same philosophical conversations again and again. The only thing I liked about it was Morgan's recognition that there was no good or bad, only if the bad drags one down. In all, it was a good setup for the finale, but I wish the road to get there was a little tighter.
Rob Cook, 3.75 horrendous cliffhangers out of 5. Lots of plate spinning in this episode. Didn't understand why so many people had to leave Alexandria when they know a battle is ahead of them. Pretty poor strategy. I would have thought roll on next week and Negan.
Luke Smith, 4 out of 5. Great episode, though. I think Daryl getting shot here guarantees him safe passage in the finale. Yeah, I think we agree with that. Negan won't bother killing an already wounded man. Daryl is...
See that picture? That's pretty funny. Don't worry, Daryl rolled underneath the dumpster.
Yeah. And lastly, Jim Deese's favorite name to say, Richard Copy Cherryton, wrote 4.5. What the hell just happened at the end out of 5? Really enjoyed this episode and great cliffhanger to set us up for the finale. Fox UK shows the trailer for next week's episode, and the teaser trailer showed us Negan. Can't wait.
Yeah, we saw the same trailer, and it looks great. Actually, it came out early, but it didn't really spoil anything for those of us that watched it.
Yeah. I haven't actually. I've seen that's there. I don't watch the next on, so
I mean, yeah.
I don't assume it's like something huge. It's just like, hey,
you see the bat, you see Negan's back, and you hear him talk a little bit, and then that's it. So it's if that doesn't spoil it for you, then it's worth a watch. It's pretty good.
All right.
Well, thanks everybody for responding. Again, you can get all these episodes and many other podcasts at hhwlod.com, where you can find the other podcast that I am on, which is It's All Connected, which is the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. You can find Jim Dietz's DC TV podcast there as well, of course, the Dead TV podcast. And you can find Mr. Craig DeMonda at the Auto Chat Show.
We just had the New York International Auto Show coverage, new episode coming out this week, and a lot of cool reviews, so stay tuned for that.
And you can find Aaron Newworth, not only on this podcast, but you can find him at Out Now with Aaron and Abe, their movie review podcast. So since none of you heard our discussion of Batman vs. Superman, since we did that before we actually started recording, you can find out what him and all the folks have to say at Out Now related to all of the hubbub related to Batman
vs. Superman. Break down as I try to review the film with you guys. It's wonderful.
I can't wait to hear this one. When's it going up?
It should go
soon?
up. It should be up at the same day this episode, probably.
Okay, cool.
You'll be able to get it now, you listeners. But yeah, it's a good solid episode for sure. And yeah, we do the podcast every week, talk about movies, and happy to do it and find it on iTunes and wherever else.
And don't forget to vote